What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Game, your one source for everything cool in video games. If you want to be a part of the show, then head to insidethegame.ca, where there you can submit your clip and end off our show. We've got all kinds of reviews this week. Destiny is back, and there's a new Forza title? We'll be checking that one out shortly, but first, here's the Inside Scoop. If you're looking to delve into ancient ruins, grab some mysterious artifacts, and raid some tombs, then look no further than Adam's Venture Origins. The adventure begins in 1925 when protagonist Adam and his trusted companion Evelyn discover a strange object bearing mysterious symbols. What started as a routine excavation has now turned into a race to discover the secret of Eden. Grab this new adventure over on the Switch and check out the sneak peek of the trailer.
Frontier has dropped a bombshell of a trailer for Elite Dangerous's brand new DLC slated to come out early 2021. This is the Odyssey series of DLC. This will follow up Horizon and will take place as the next major form of updates coming to the game. Now, this one obviously jumps into foot combat. This is something that's been rumored to come to Elite Dangerous for a very, very long time. Space Legs, they call it. They've been in development of this mode since, I want to say 2016. A very long time in development indeed. They kind of took off more than they could chew in the Horizons DLC. It was originally slanted to be part of that, but they're getting around to it. Horizon is done, and it's time for more to come to the ginormous universe of Elite Dangerous. Joining carriers, being able to run around on your feet just makes this game huge, exponentially bigger for the possibilities of missions and inter-player personnel kind of conflicts you can get into. I am excited by all the things I've seen in that minute trailer, and I cannot wait to see the details in what comes out in sure to be Frontier's live streams to follow. Now, stay tuned to this. It's supposed to be coming out 2021 early, they say, and for all platforms of Elite Dangerous simultaneously. This is a big step, as PC has traditionally led the way, but we're starting to see a change in that trend.
So Bungie tweeted a new teaser from Destiny's Twitter account, which showed the Drifter and kind of a cool little scene, kind of teasing some new stuff coming up. And you know what? We're getting that Year 4 official DLC, and it's coming out on June 9th. So I know that was a quick little 15-second trailer of the Drifter there, but you know what? It kind of coincides with something Bungie published on Instagram and then took down back on June 1st. And it was actually a little teaser photo of Eris Morn wandering what appeared to be the same moon that the Drifter was headed to there. And what kind of only suggests that they're both going to be in the same place, that maybe the Darkness Wars are coming to Destiny 2 sooner than we thought.
Well, if you're like us, you're looking forward to information that you can get your hands on with Cyberpunk 2077. Well, their latest Twitch stream coming June 11th has been delayed to June 25th. We found this out via Twitter. Over on Twitter, Cyberpunk 2077 had this to say: "We decided to move Night City Wire to June 25th. We still look forward to sharing new information about Cyberpunk 2077, but more important discussions are happening right now, and we want them to be heard. We wholeheartedly stand against racism, intolerance, and violence. Black Lives Matter." So we're gonna have to wait a little bit longer to hear more information about Cyberpunk 2077, and they should be talking about their upcoming DLC for the game as well. What's coming ahead of us? We have yet to find out.
So to celebrate their 60th anniversary, yes, that's right, 60 years Sega's been around, they're coming out with a Game Gear Micro, a palm-sized Game Gear. We gotta check this thing out. The Game Gear Micro is currently only available to pre-order in Japan and will launch on October 6th. And there's been no news right now of a Western release for the device, so it's going to be tough to get our hands on over here. The console has a 1-inch screen and will arrive in 4 color schemes, each with a different set of 4 games preloaded onto it. The device will offer a headphone jack, charge via USB, and use 2 AAA batteries for power. Sega is also currently offering a promotion where if you buy all 4 color variants of the Game Gear Micro, you'll receive a special big window accessory that magnifies that 1-inch screen while you play. The console is said to be going for approximately $50 USD.
The post-apocalyptic city sim survival game Frostpunk is set to get its 3rd batch in the DLC Season Pass. Now, fans might be wondering what Project Vadgetsgujgubber meant, but now it has been revealed as the On the Edge package of DLC. On the Edge DLC will feature the storyline of New London after the Great Storm has passed. Now, the Great Storm is over, the gameplay is going to change quite a bit, seeing as it's no longer the Great Winter anymore, and there's a whole lot new mechanics and new characters and scenarios that are going to come up to surprise you in the Wasteland. So if you're a fan of Frostpunk, stay tuned as this DLC is supposed to come out on Steam this summer.
So all you Valorant fans that missed out on a chance to get a beta code, well, your wait's officially over because the launch of the game is here and Riot Games is celebrating with a new cinematic trailer that showcases 2 of the new agents in the game, Phoenix and Jet. And you know what? They got some really cool moves. I'm just gonna leave it at that. Let's check out this trailer.
Phoenix, please tell me you have the package.
I would if somebody was a little less aggressive. Hey, stop! I said stop!
We are going to be supporting a great cause on June 22nd to the 24th. We're helping the team over at Player vs. Cancer in hopes to raise money in the fight to end cancer. 1 in 3 people will develop cancer over the course of their lifetime, and we're expecting a 45% increase in cancer cases by the year 2030. 40% of all cancer cases are completely preventable. Help us in the fight to end cancer on June 22nd to the 24th over at twitch.tv/Player vs. Cancer or head to playervscancer.org. Now, let's game to end cancer.
Today we look at Resolution on the Nintendo Switch from Monolith of Minds. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about Resolution, this new game and how it fits on the Nintendo Switch. Now, at first glance, this game kind of has that look and feel of some similar games in the genre, like Hyper Light Drifter or Tokyo 42, just to name a few. This game has that top-down, third-person kind of isometric view that is becoming popular in this new generation of consoles and on PC in general. This game is very PC friendly to me. It looks kind of like a game that would fit on that. There's so many different titles that I'm just struggling to remember right now that kind of look like they fit the mold. It's similar to a Metroidvania, but in a 3-dimensional space, which is kind of cool. Now, speaking about how it fits on the Switch, I have to mention the visuals of this game. They're very bright, very neon, and these are similar tones that we've seen before on the Switch. Personally, I think it works out very well as a Nintendo product, even though it's kind of bloody and it's kind of like a ninja slashing game. In practice, that's the combat. It's more of this hack and slash kind of dodge your way through a bunch of enemies. Eventually you get to a point that's kind of like a boss fight, or you find like a scary enemy that you kind of have to take your time and learn, but for the most part you're just traversing a map that's pretty open to you depending on whatever items you get. That's kind of the other half of these games, is that while you're exploring, you have to collect these items that empower your character in better and bigger ways. Usually something that'll give you some kind of like movement advantage, like a dodge, or in this case you have the ability to see through the pixelated kind of fog that your missing memories have left you with. That's the kind of story element to this one. You have a missing memory, and you find your AI companion Alibi that will supposedly lead you through the world and kind of remind you about who you used to be. Now, that kind of plays out a little differently in practice, as it's not really certain if you're the good guy or the bad guy in this case. It's a really interesting dynamic because you're not really sure what to think in this crazy post-apocalyptic kind of mixing with cyborgs world that you find yourself in. The story is told in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way through a bunch of different characters, especially in one section where you're speaking to animals that kind of teach you about how to create an empire or how to manage each other of sorts. It's a kind of weird political throwback into this game that otherwise is pretty lighthearted. In this post-apocalyptic world, it's really kind of unclear as to what and who you are, and that makes up the meat of what you're discovering in the form of these upgrades and these little pieces of memories here and there, and these little tokens that you learn from the environment as to what kind of happened there. Sometimes you just get these little machine guys that will give you an item, and you can kind of see what items you have and what you're missing in this kind of hub world located in the north of the map. It's kind of misleading. You think it's perhaps something smaller, but when you get into it you realize that there's a lot of collectible kind of items and upgrades to get, and this game actually trails on for about 20 to 25 hours if you're a skilled player. Now, I have to admit, this game really did beat me up. It's not that I'm unfamiliar with this kind of game. I've played similar Metroid kind of games before, but not the isometric type. But that aside, I still had such a hard time figuring out what paths to take and what kind of areas I needed to go through to get to the objectives. The objectives are clear, they pop up on a map that I can reference at any time, but if I don't have the right item to breach that area, if I can't dissolve that barricade with nanites yet, how am I supposed to kind of get through the map? I get that it's pseudo open world, so perhaps I'm just finding items in a weird order, but that was just something that threw me off and really hindered my progress in the game. I know that I didn't get nearly as far as perhaps I should have with the amount of time I sank into the game, but that being said, it is quite an enjoyable environment, even though it kind of at times leaves a little bit to be desired in the terms of a more thought out combat pattern. A lot of it is just dodge around, shoot, wait till your energy reloads, and then kind of dodge around, shoot again, using your sword as like a last-ditch effort or maybe just a cheap shot. But that combat doesn't really bring a lot of difficulty or depth into it, and it only really goes so far. Even when you find some bosses, it's still the same tried and true tactics that generally take them down in the end. Now, lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the soundtrack to this game. At times, it can seem somewhat boring because of the simplicity of the individual tracks, but when you get into each different section of the map, or you go from one to another and you hear that music change, it's all very vaporwave, VHS kind of, that I don't want to say 80s tone to it because it's not quite that, but it's just this neon soundtrack, if that makes any sense, to accompany the visuals of the game. It generally fits in almost all circumstances, and it really did add that extra bit to the game. It would have been really sad without it. So those are my impressions on Resolution, this kind of weird neon cyberpunk kind of game, and I'm into it. It's not my usual forte, but it has those hooks in it that kind of got me, similar to a Metroid experience. It might have its shortcomings, and I really wish it had multiplayer to share the experience, but overall, this game was a pretty interesting grab, and I have to give this one a 6.5 out of 10. Fun, vibrant, and runs well on Nintendo Switch. A long game, but does little to innovate. Alright, Drew, let's rewind and do it again. This is Quantum League.
Nice.
Okay, Drew, so we didn't know anything about this game when it fell into our laps, but a quick explanation of the premise told us that we have to check this one out. But the premise is a little confusing, so stay with me here. I'm going to try and explain how this game works for those who don't know. It's a little confusing. So, if you start the game, it's always a 1v1 or a 2v2 against the enemy team. And it's a arena shooter in a very confined small space. At the start of every life, you get 5 different guns to choose from, and you use that gun to kill the enemy and get to the center of the map. Now, that sounds pretty simple, but it only goes in 15-second loops. There are 3 loops in a cycle, and the score is counted at the end of the cycle. So, player 1 starts off. You need to run, get to that point, right? But if a guy shoots you on the way, it's okay. You just still need to get to that point, because in your second and third life, if you prevent the death of your first life, that guy will get to that point and will score that point for you. So it gets to be this crazy cat and mouse game of stopping the enemy and getting your playthrough all before the end of the cycle. It's crazy intense, but what did you think when we jumped into that? Pretty blind.
Oh man, you know what? I remember playing the first part and you're going like, what is going on here? And then all of a sudden you finish the first round and then everything rewinds. You're like, and it all backs up. And then you do it again, and you're like, what? And then after you do it again, you rewind and you do it again. But 15 seconds, man, goes so fast. You need to get to the center. That is your goal, right? So if you're alive in the center, you then are awarded. Now, you can win the first 2, which almost in a sense does not matter because you need to win the last round in order to cap the point. So the first 2 placements, or the first 2 rounds, is more of like a setup round, right? But it is, Scott, this game is absolute chaos from the minute you get going, because the minute you die, like you said, you still can go to the center because you can prevent that death. So the strategies that you and I were coming up with as we're playing this, and you played a lot of solo stuff as well, then when we're going out there, you're like, okay, you go down the middle, I'll go left. All right, fine. There goes the first round. Second round, those 2 lives come back. They go down the middle and to the left. But then on that second round, then you and I, with our present self, will take the other side, right? So you're kind of all over the map by the time that's all done. And the chaos that happens, and it is, honestly, it is hard to explain the actual mechanics of the game and how it all plays out. But if you play it, dude, you and I were killing ourselves laughing. Even when we lost, or even if we won, we're having so much fun because there's so many moments and they're like highlights. This game is all about hitting the highlights, because you're like, man, I was like this close from capping that circle, or I was just outside the circle. You're in the air and you can see yourself. It goes in slow-mo, and as that last like 10 milliseconds wraps up, you're like, woo! And then you're frozen in midair because you weren't able to land and cap that point. Man, it is so much fun. And then the way you can go about what gun you choose. There's 5 different options, I believe, and that plays to part of the strategy as well. The rocket launcher, the grenade launcher kind of will just mess everything up. But when you're going out there, if you die, you can then bring yourself back by capping the health potion or health like orb that's out there, and then you rewind, so you're like all of a sudden you're back in the game. It's, dude, I could keep going, but it is just chaotic fun, and it is just a blast, and people need to play this game.
Yeah, if this is really hard to understand, just trust. It is hard to understand. Yeah. It's something that you need to watch a couple times through, and I'm going to loop a couple loops here just so you can kind of grab what's going on. There's this thing where you're respawning and coming back into the round to try and end the enemy's attempt, you know, so it's just always this constant battle of strategy where there's a really low entry. You can get into this game pretty easily just shooting grenades around and having a good time, but a really high ceiling where these pro players, every millisecond counts. They're using the SMG and they're just spraying the enemy, or they're popping perfect headshots from across the map. I want to see this game become an esports game. Now, I have to give a nod to the community. They are extremely open and welcoming right now. The game is pretty early, and it's just come out of beta where a lot of these players got really good, and they just want to see the community grow. So you're very encouraged to come into this game as a newbie. If you don't know what's going on, it's still fine. Just jump in, you'll understand it eventually.
Yeah, you'll get there eventually if you play enough, right? Now you mentioned esports. I think you're gonna get this as an esports, kind of like a Rocket League, right? That's kind of how I retain this and kind of perceive this community going and growing around that esports side of the game and stuff like that. But one of the things that are lacking to me are the cool skins. You are able to unlock skins as you gain currency, as you play rounds. You're granted currency that allow you to go and purchase skins. Now, my character has the toothbrush skin. As cheesy as that sounds, it actually looks pretty dope. But besides that, the other skins I didn't find were the ones you really wanted to grind out and just go, man, that one, I gotta get that one. I found those were really lacking, Scott, within the game.
Yeah. Well, I think there's 4 or 5 characters maybe, and I think they'll add some more to that soon. But there's a lot of reskins, a lot of recoloring in their skin lineup. Now there's a battle pass to chew away at. There's daily challenges to make it a little easier to get you those points. But the expensive ones are really expensive, and I think you're meant to kind of find your character and stay there.
Yeah, even that though, I don't think the character really determines the outcome of the match, right? It's all about your skill and the gun you choose and going out, and then after you die, figuring out what you have to do to prevent that death to bring you back. Sometimes you gotta watch out, because I shot Scott a few times and friendly fire is a thing even into your past lives. But dude, I had so much fun playing this game.
Oh my god. That was a sick round.
Scott, I think we've captured the circle as much as we can. What are you gonna recommend or not recommend this one in early access for Quantum League?
Yeah, this game is incredible, especially considering that it's only in early access. I'm completely blown away by the mind-bending reality of the tactics in this game. I had a really great time. I have to recommend.
It is definitely a welcome surprise, and the community is only getting bigger and growing as it kind of comes along. And to perfect this game, I think is going to be something that people are going to want to look towards and doing, and then just team up and have a great time. Easy to get into, and yet still that competition is there as well. You got to check this one out. I'm definitely recommending it.
An incredible and unique shooter with a high skill cap, this game has serious potential for high-speed esports fan following.
We're back with a new mobile mention, and we're hitting the streets racing. This week we're back with a new mobile mention. It's been a while, but we thought we'd jump into hitting the streets. We're talking about Forza Street, a new racer hitting the mobile platform, and I've been playing over on the iOS and having a great time. I'm rather surprised in how well it actually transitioned from the console version over to the mobile version. Now, it is a little bit more simplistic in the fact that you're not able to really fine-tune your cars how you normally would in a Forza series, but it is there to do upgrades and things along that line. The story as well is kind of simple. You're there kind of making your way up through the ranks. There are 4 big shots over in Miami who have kind of set the scene for the street racing, and you're kind of going up and making your way through those ranks to kind of overtake them and become the overall king in the streets. Now, it is a cool story. I had a good time when I was playing it, and then the ability when you actually play the game is really, really simple. The actual game mechanic of Forza Street is relatively simple. It's almost played out in the quarter-mile race. You against one other racer will then look to fight for the best kind of launch you're looking for, and then the perfect timing for your turns. You want to hit that perfect turn and get off the gas, and then you want to hit the gas at the right time as well. And that, from there, with a couple boosts of speed here or there with some nitrous, gets you the win. Pretty simple, but pretty addicting at the same time. Overall, Forza Street was a great addition. We're even able to unlock achievements for the Xbox system and platform, which was kind of a nice surprise. Lots of dailies, lots of challenges, and a whole lot of cars to unlock. Forza Street is definitely worth checking out.
Odin, Loki, Freya? Well, Drew, let's check out Jotun. So this week we took a look at Jotun, or maybe Jotun, depending on how you pronounce it, and we took a look at it on the Google Stadia system. And what were your first impressions of this one, Drew? This isn't my first time going through the game.
Yeah, once you saw that we had this, you're like, dude, you gotta play this one. You're gonna like it. And you know what? It kind of really stuck. It was a welcome surprise. Obviously, anything we get on the Stadia right now is pretty welcome. We're having a good time there when we are there, but it's a matter of sticking around. So when you see a new title, we have to definitely check it out. So for me, not playing this one before, it was nice to see that it's set in the Viking time period. One of my favorite time periods of all, too, because we just, like, I've been watching Vikings, the actual series and stuff, so to get into this as well, I thought, man, this is really cool. So a lot of the gods that they're talking about, like Loki and Thunder, I'm already pretty familiar with as well. So to get back into this, and as you go out in this side-scrolling adventure, it is really cool and simplistic to jump in, and it's not an overall big game, right? But you kind of start out, you set out, and you go into this hub world, and then from there you branch off, and you have to get these ruins that will allow you then to go off to the boss fight in the end. And I think that's really where it all kind of comes together. You can go out, explore, gather a couple things and get the ruins, and then when you get to the boss fight, that challenge, dude, can be really tough, and it's a matter of figuring out that puzzle.
Yeah, so you touched on that it's a small game. I believe you finished the first section right off the start, so then there's 4 different directions you can kind of go in off of the hub world, and each one has its own biome. So there's like a frost zone for the frost giants. There's like a swamp created out of one of their bodies. There's a lot of really cool things that happen in Norse mythology explained through the game. And I think that's really interesting because they mention all the gods, they explain a lot of their relationships, they tell a really cool story throughout, and they give you a lot of the origin story of a lot of these Norse, myths and legends. And it's really cool to play this. It's I have to correct you, it's not quite side-scrolling, it's a little bit isometric top-down.
Yeah,
so I hear the comments already, but
yeah, no, that's fair.
It's a really fun game where it's very simple. You go and collect in these biomes you collect different powers from the gods, and you collect the runes. You get 2 runes of the biome, and that opens up that biome's boss. That boss is usually a very thematic fight. A lot of these bosses have different tropes to them, they play different ways. You have to learn kind of how to use your abilities to survive long enough and fight these giant people to appease the gods.
Yeah, it's definitely really cool. Some of the boss fights I had a blast in. Now, again, being the boss fight, I died several times too, trying to get to that achievement. But once you're there, you're able to get rewarded as well as when you move throughout the game with certain powers, like from Loki and from Thor, you know. So when you're going out and you're traversing the open world sort of aspect of it, that you're able to use these powers and gain that ability to move forward, and then use those in the boss fight as well. I mean, I had a great time playing this, and then the overall story too touches on kind of that family aspect and things. I don't want to spoil anything because it's not a very long game, so you want to definitely experience that for yourself. But dude, this game is really cool, and it was a surprise to see come over, so I'm having a lot of fun. It was awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And the look and feel of the game I knew was going to be something that appealed to you right off the start. And I like the music and the ambience they put behind it. Everything is nice and hand-drawn, and all the audio is really, really well done to make an atmosphere that you're walking through. And each atmosphere is a little bit different, and it feels a little different. And a lot of these times when you get to that boss fight, if it's really hard, you're just more so encouraged to leave and explore the other biomes and gather more power to come back. You're always able to do that. So this game is pretty casual in that sense.
Well, Scott, I think we've impressed the gods. What do you score in this one?
Yeah, now, I had a little bit of issues on Stadia to do with input lag and some freezing here and there, but that might have more to do with my internet than it does Google, so I don't really want to fault them for that one. But I had a really good time jumping through this game a second time. It holds up, and it's still a lot of fun. I want to give this one a 7 out of 10.
Nice. You know what? I'm right there with you. I didn't have any issues over on my Stadia. Everything ran really smoothly. I thought the art style was a great connection, especially that hand-drawn feel. It is so cool, and the story is really neat as well. I'm there with a 7 too.
A short but great addition to the Stadia library, Jotun is a lot of fun.
Nate, we're back in Predator Hunting Grounds with some DLC, and Dutch is in.
Oh baby.
April 2025. It's hard to believe that I'm still here recording this. U.S. Army veteran, Special Ops Commander, and the only survivor of the Valverde incident. These tapes are my personal testimony. I'm not dead yet. My name is Dutch, and this is my story. Predator Hunting Grounds.
Nate, you and I jumped back into Predator Hunting Grounds with some new DLC and a bunch of fixes. How you liking the new setup for Predator?
Okay, man, so I'm level 100 on Predator, and I have been for quite a while. So, you know, with the game, they didn't have a lot to the people that were max level. There wasn't really any daily challenges or anything to give you that end-game currency to grind for more gear.
Yep.
But with the latest DLC update, we got a new character, a new gun, and a really good just all-in-all update with the game.
That's fair.
The graphics on, like, you play on the Pro, so you haven't had quite the hindrance that I've had, but playing on the original PS4, just all in all, the game kind of had this weird almost outline to everything you're looking at. It was just kind of like fuzzy, and just, it didn't look that great. But now everything, the fuzz is gone, and it just looks so much better and runs so much better.
Yeah, I think the game runs really smooth. Obviously, as you said, I'm playing on the Pro, so I never really had some of the problems and experiences that you were having issues with, mine always ran smooth. My biggest touch is the fact that Dutch is in the game. So Arnold Schwarzenegger is in it, and he's voiced, and it's all, dude, it sounds so cool. And you got a new skin, which is always nice, something kind of exciting. And we're getting monthly updates now too. So they've, over at IllFonic, have laid out a roadmap of DLC. And dude, it was a good time. I had a good time. It kind of brought me back, but it didn't still really kind of keep me in there. Because when you do get the drops, I'm still getting a lot of duplicates. And I'm not at that level 100 like you are.
Yeah. Their loot system, it's hard to say, man. They don't have any paid DLC, so it's, you know, I don't mind so much getting duplicates, and all the duplicates just give you more of the currency to buy more crates. But at the same time, like I said, I'm level 100. I'd probably be almost 200 by now if there was a prestige system. And I haven't earned one knife yet, man. There are multiple knives. I didn't even know that until one of my buddies, who's only like rank 60, unlocked 3 different knives.
Wow.
So it's unbelievable a little bit that I can't, there's no way for me to grind these knives.
Well, we do have Dutch's knife, so at least we have that. That's a nice, cool looking knife, man. That thing looks awesome. And then you got Dutch's gun too, which has got an underbarrel shot or underbarrel grenade launcher to it. So that was kind of a cool attachment. And it, man, that's a solid gun. I ripped up the Predator the other day when I was playing as Dutch.
Yeah, honestly, that gun is one of the better guns in the game, if not the best. The noob tube feature is actually a noob tube, so when you hit it, it detonates upon launch, or upon landing. Yeah. So like, they have a grenade launcher in the game, and it doesn't do that. So having an actual noob tuber is great. And I mean, like we said, the voice acting is awesome, man.
It's so cool.
They've created a whole bunch of collectibles or voice logs, and all these logs actually explain where the character from 1987, the original Predator movie, Dutch, where he is now in 2025 in the game.
Which is cool.
It's so cool, man. And he voices everything, and it's Schwarzenegger's voice, and it's like, you know, he's 80 years old in the game, and you kind of find out that he's got some experiments done on him, and he's actually killed more Predators. So, like, there's all this stuff. So, for me, as a big Predator fan, I loved it, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely glad that they brought something like this into the game and kind of gave us more lore too within the story of itself. So it kind of enticed me to come back into the game, check it out, and we had a great time. To me, this is one you just kind of pick up, have a good time with your buddies, and that's it for your night kind of thing, right? Then you go out and do it again and do it again. But let's talk about the Predator itself, because that has a couple of different tweaks now to it as well.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, it seems like there was maybe a little bit of a bug or something they didn't realize, because the Predator to a lot of people was underpowered, so they had to buff him in a way. But moving forward, we were playing, and so we're in a 2-story building. We're on the 2nd floor, you know, with a big, nice metal roof above us, and then your brother is below us on the 1st floor. And when the Predator ground pounds on the ceiling, or on the roof, sorry, it travels through all of the floors. So there's no, like, it's kind of cheap because you can't hide in a room, and honestly, being in a room in that game is already dangerous enough. So just to have a Predator to be able to just kind of slam over and over again, that sucks. But I know that they're going to patch that. They have to.
Yeah, absolutely.
The area are on high alert. Intruders have been spotted in the by the sounds of the radio chatter, they know something's up. Be careful.
Nate, we've had a good time jumping back into Predator hunting grounds. You gonna recommend or not recommend picking up Dutch?
Well, I'm gonna give this one a recommend, man. It's $10. It is a little bit steep because you only get a character with a new knife and a new weapon, and you know, all this lore alongside. But there's no new map, and that's something maybe this game is missing, is a new map or some new objectives. So that kind of sucks, but ultimately, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Predator, and this guy is a must-grab. It's excellent learning about all of Dutch's previous past and, you know, where he's at now.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a great experience to jump back in and have Dutch there now as well, and have the voice of Arnold is so cool. It's definitely a recommend for me.
My team was brought in to rescue a Guatemala cabinet minister and his aide, who had been captured by guerrilla forces in Valverde. We located the downed helicopter, and the skinned bodies of those aboard hung in nearby trees, seemingly at the hands of guerrilla fighters. After assaulting their camp, it became clear that the mission was a setup. American intelligence had sent us to retrieve the captured agents who had been on recon for future military action. But none of that matters, because while we were clearing out the guerrillas, something was hunting us.
Alright, Corey, it's time to unleash the fury to the Ink Masters. Alright, Corey, so we got our hands on a Rogue Experience, man, and this game is pretty cool. This is more of your genre for sure, at least as far as the review games go. But for me, this one definitely struck home, dude. I loved the art style.
Yeah, you know what? This one was really cool. It definitely had this Metal Slug kind of cartoony style to it, and you know what? I didn't hate it by any stretch. Like you said, I've played a few of these roguelike games now, you know, side scroller, hack and slash, shoot 'em up kind of style games, and you know, they all kind of differ in their own way. And this game definitely has its own kind of special mechanics, and it was really cool. Like, I'm not going to go into too much detail right yet. Let's kind of just jump into how this game starts off. We're actually a character named Fury, and the whole idea is to go unleashed throughout this entire game. And we're talking combos, killing enemies, shooting, melee, whatever it takes. There's kind of like this Mario drop slam technique that I kind of was like, all right, this is cool. There's a lot of really interesting things here in this game. And like you said, the art style is kind of where it starts, because it's this comic book style game. And that's kind of where it kind of goes on its own in this genre, because I've never played a game that kind of does it this way. And it's kind of like every level is a comic book, and every tile is a different tile on the map that you navigate. And that was really cool. I thought that was kind of a really interesting experience.
Yeah, I did think so too, man. The map design itself, so every time you start in on the comic or the first map, it's all randomly generated. So, you know, the layout of everything, whether or not it's a rectangle to your right or a square and then it leads down, it's always random. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I did find after a couple hours, the randomly generated areas started to become samey, which was kind of annoying. Mm-hmm. But you know, ultimately the map design was pretty cool, man. I really like how there's kind of this overarching story where you're Fury and you're trying to impress the Ink Master to make your comic succeed. It's kind of like this overarching story where then the main story is each comic that you're fighting in, you're just killing and destroying all evil.
Oh yeah, it's non-stop. And that's, like you said, you're just kind of killing everything in your path. Every, you know, tile you enter, there's new enemies or kind of you know, traps or things you may need to have to navigate, and it's all about timing your combos, making sure you're kind of keeping that kill chain alive, because like we said, it's a roguelike game, so health is definitely at a premium. It's not cheap to purchase in this game, so the idea is to try to get it, you know, through combos, by, you know, building up your combos, building up your skill tree that this game also has, which I thought was pretty cool. And it's, I'm not going to say it's an extensive skill tree, but it gives you enough options that you can kind of, you know, tailor your play style, I think. You know, whether it be trying to collect more health when you kill enemies, or maybe you're looking for something more on the aggressor side where, you know, you're doing more damage or you're keeping your combo alive longer, which I thought was really cool, because chaining things together in this game is what makes this game fun, right? Like we said, it has this kind of side scroller. I've played a few of these, but to me, it felt kind of Contra-esque, because I'm non-stop. Like, I'm shooting non-stop. I'm only meleeing when I have to, because I'm just shooting no matter what, because I'm picking up guns. I was shooting a gun that shot saw blades, man. It was like, it's so cool. There's so many different kind of guns and weapons you can pick up through this game that really let you customize your character, that some of these games in this genre don't necessarily let you do.
Yeah, I really liked the amount of weapons and upgrades that you could actually get while you're playing, and then outside of combat, that skill tree as well. I thought that was very well made. So alongside Corey killing everything and just, you know, causing total chaos, you actually have sometimes some side quests. You'll meet this vendor or some sort of merchant, and they'll be like, oh, if you get from here to here within a certain amount of time, you'll get a reward. Or some of them even, like you said earlier, they sell you health, they sell you weapon upgrades or random kind of passive abilities. There's actually a ton of different things that you can purchase while you're playing the game.
Oh yeah, there's a ton of variety here, I think, with that aspect of it, and it wasn't necessarily something I expected either from this. Like I said, I've played a few of these, and I'm not going to keep repeating myself, but again, there's so many different games in this genre that I'm surprised that they're able to kind of, you know, stand out a little bit with all these kind of different interesting mechanics.
Yeah, man. And of course, a bonus feature and a great feature to have in these kind of games is co-op.
Oh yeah.
Couch co-op, man. I personally actually didn't get to experience it, obviously because of COVID and everything. I haven't really been able to get my hands on it, but the option is there. And, you know, with these types of games, having that option is perfect, man.
Oh yeah, it's so much fun because it is a difficult game. Like, even on easy, this game is difficult. And we've got 4 modes here. We've got easy, difficult, and then 2 levels higher than difficult. So, I mean, it's not meant for, you know, the faint of heart here. This game is going to test you. So being able to sit on the couch with somebody else and experience the same things and hopefully have somebody help you along the way is definitely a huge feature here.
Yeah, man. And basically, the whole thing is you have mini bosses within each chapter, sometimes 2 in a chapter. Yeah. And then once you've taken out 3, you end up fighting the main boss. And then once you beat him, you actually move on to the next world.
Yeah.
And there's 3 worlds, but here's the catch. You can't start off in the second world until you've actually beaten the game from start to finish, which is no easy task, man. On easy, this game is insane. Yeah. So I kind of thought that was maybe a little too harsh. Like, I got a little tired of playing through the jungle over and over and over again, and you know, moving forward to the second area where you're fighting neo-Nazis, it would have been nice to have maybe started there, just because. Like, you know, it's just like I said, it's just you end up seeing the same thing in the jungle for hours if you know, you don't end up progressing. One of my other complaints, and I just have to touch up on, is when you scroll from, you know, one screen to the next. I wish there was maybe a little more of like a buffer area, because sometimes I would enter an area and then there would be monsters swarming me. So then I would accidentally scroll back, and it just kind of does this weird, like, jank, jank, jank. Yep. Like, it just kind of does this skip thing where, you know, other games like this, if you move to the next area, it kind of gives you that little buffer area. So
yeah,
and that was kind of frustrating. And when you, honestly, when you move to the area, say you killed a couple enemies and then you back out, you lose all that XP that you didn't pick up, or that ink in this game.
Yeah, and they make you pay for it with stuff like that. And again, that's just what, you know, a small oversight where that could really change the experience of the game, right? So again, there's a lot of good, and there's, you know, a couple bad things about this one. So if we gotta score this one, Nate, what are you gonna give it?
Well, dude, ultimately, I loved unleashing all the fury. I had a lot of fun with this. The kind of the overarching story and the graphics and the comic book style, it complemented the game very well. I'm gonna have to give this one a 7.5. It's not quite an 8, but it's a 7.5, man.
You know what? I was thinking about this one for a little bit. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to score this game, because I genuinely had a good time playing this game. And playing other games like it, this one does unique things that I enjoyed. But again, after a little bit of time, it just kind of wears on you. It was hard, and it's not easy to jump back in when you're getting your butt kicked all the time. But you know what? For me, it's still a great game, and I think, especially during times like this where people got a little extra time on their hands, this is definitely one worth playing and checking out. And if you have the opportunity to play with someone else, I think you're going to have a good time. I'm right there with you with a 7.5.
Nice.
With a unique art style and creative game mechanics, you'll find yourself unleashing fury through a cool comic book backdrop. But some issues with screen transitions can be frustrating, but I think overall you're going to have a good time.
All right, Scott, let's group up. It's time to take on some hearts.
Let's do it.
Scott, you and I jumped into a brand new game. We're talking about Crucible, something that was produced by Amazon Games. That's a new take coming out from them. We knew they were working on something, but this wasn't the game that we were actually looking for. This kind of came as a stealth release, but you and I have been jumping in and playing a ton of this game. Crucible is a unique team-based squad game where you go out and, depending on the game mode, for us, it's mostly Heart of the Hives, where we go out, shoot down the hive, take the heart, and the first team to 3 wins. What do you think of this hero shooter?
Yeah, this one's really cool. It's a little more open to the shooter gameplay style than other MOBAs we've seen in the past. And I'm going to give it that grouping of MOBA just based on the Heart of the Hive game type. There's a lot of things that go off, you know, you want to spec your team to have a tank or an attacker or a defender kind of guy, perhaps a jungler, and you're grinding experience the whole gameplay. So you level up and eventually out-level the other team, and that makes you more efficient fighters, and you can take the hearts better. It's really cool how they put a bunch of strategy into a game that's basically about map domination.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a MOBA light, I would call it, right? Typically in a MOBA, you have 3 lanes, and you go out and you farm against the minions and level yourself up, go back to home base, and then you kind of strategize and pick your gear and your stats that you want to go out and fight against. Here, it's kind of made a little bit differently. You select your hero, your fighter, and then from there, you are able to adjust your stats up to 3 of them, and then they kind of gradually increase as you get to level 5. But when you go out and farm, there aren't 3 lanes. It's an open map. You go for harvesters, and then you farm against the AI out there. Like the creatures are lurkers, stompers, and spitters, and you farm these creatures. But when you build up from the essence that they drop, it's kind of like your resource to gradually get your level higher. It actually goes towards the entire team and not just yourself. So they've kind of, that's why I said, made it a MOBA light, I would call it, the experience. And then for the Heart of the Hives, it's kind of that overall goal that you're all out there to survive and kind of capture. And the first team to 3 win that game mode. And it's all kind of based around, I would say, Heart of the Hives, because there is the Harvester command where you go out and you gather the harvesters, or these big towers kind of thing, and you're looking to control these, and those who control that helps them gain the experience over everybody else.
Yeah, similar to a Battlefield, but a little bit more messy.
Yeah, we've been having a great time, Scott, but there's definitely a few things we've noticed that are a little lacking, and I think that's kind of something the community is looking for, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, definitely. There's 2 things. One's a little bit more minor, and that is the lack of a mini-map. So you're able to check the map, and at least you can generally start a sprint and then check the map without stopping dead or anything. But it's not shown on your screen, and that can get kind of annoying. The major thing, though, is that there's no team chat. Cross-team or amongst your own team. It's a very team-oriented game where you have to be very precise in your motions when it comes to a team engagement. And there's no communication system beyond a general ping. You can ping, or you can ping an enemy, but it's lacking all that fine detail that you just can't really get across any sort of tactics amongst your teammates unless you're in a Discord or something along the side.
They really do force you to kind of go outside the box, right? They want you to use a third-party program to communicate. But when you and I have been playing, Scott, there's been 3 of us, so we're short that 4th person. So when we do get the random, they're just kind of left out in limbo.
Yeah, and it's really hard to, like, I liken this to League of Legends in that sense, where if you're down one teammate, it's really hard to win any engagement, and then when you can't win, you kind of get stuck behind, and unless you're gonna go and super farm to recuperate those levels, you're just never gonna catch up, and the games could end quite quickly that way.
Yeah, what do you think of the overall hero selection, the fighters that we're using? I think some are, honestly, I think a lot of the design mechanics behind them are really cool. I like the characters that they've created. There is a very lacking lore system and kind of insight as to who these characters are and why we're on this planet, I would say.
Yeah.
As well as some of them need some fine tuning and some balance, because some are really squishy and others are just getting stomped by those who aren't so squishy.
Yeah, now there's nothing wrong with characters hard countering other characters, but we've kind of found instances where it's just because there's 10 characters to choose from and only 4 make it on a team, and you can't have repeat characters, it kind of, there's a mismatch sometimes where the enemy team could be just totally built around you and you're not really that much of a hindrance to them, and it's very slanted that way. That's hard to contend with. But there is 10 characters and they each follow their own kind of different trope, and each of those characters you can tweak the stats of to kind of play in one of 3 different kind of slants they put on it. So you can kind of make your guy more of an assassin-y character, just based on what skills you have.
You now start with 3 med kits and can carry up to 5.
Stop moving around.
Scott, you mentioned that there is no mini-map, but there's also only one map. We don't see a variety of maps like we do in other games. This is their first kind of foray into something like this, so we'll see what comes down the pipeline. But I thought the overall map design, you do get that river that goes down the middle. It kind of separates that half side of the map. But overall, I like that there's different elevation, and you're not always on a flat plane throughout it. You're going high, you're going low, you're ducking under bridges, and you're going through like a little caverns here or there. I thought it was a nice variety through the map. I thought the map looked relatively cool as well.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I just wish there was maybe a little bit different of a map type for the Battle Royale mode or the larger big team, but it's that's a small gripe, and the game is still very new.
Well, Scott, that was our battle for the Harvesters. Getting that last heart is always a nice achievement. What do you score in Crucible?
Yeah, this game can be frustrating at times, but it can also be really fun at times. This is not my type of game. You kind of pulled me into this one, but I found my character that I like to play, and I'm starting to have a lot more fun with it now. I want to give this one a 7 out of 10.
Yeah, that's a solid score. I think they've got a lot of work to do building upon this game to keep it up and going. The community is how it thrives, right? So you're going to live or die by the community, and if you got to keep us engaged. I think one other thing we need to touch on, the fact that when you did get the game, you actually got the battle pass for free, which I thought was very cool, and enough points if you grind out the entire battle pass that you're going to be able to get a skin within the store as well. So I thought that was a really cool attention to detail that they were able to give us and kind of draw the community in. I'm there with the 7 as well.
Crucible has some faults, but is a lot of fun with a team of friends. A confident mix of MOBA and hero shooter action.
Well, that'll wrap up this week's episode. Thanks so much for sticking around and watching, but you know how we ended off with one of your highlighted clips. You can do that by going to InsideTheGame.ca, just like Denim did, and he's singing his way to victory in some Warzone. Check this out.